evil phrase, tune him out, has now been in the dialogue.
Yep.
Do you have any feel in your mind that has happened?
I don't think so. And I say that because when you listen to the players, there hasn't been any signs of that. Normally you can get a feel talking to the players, and it's tough. It's tough to cover a team when you're not there every day.
Right.
Well,
And
that's the other thing.
it's a lot harder to get a feel for where things are. When Kyrie, during that season, when everything went wrong, you walked into the gym, you walked into the locker room, and you knew something was just off. And you could feel it. You could feel it the way guys interacted. You could feel it when you were at practice. You could just feel it that something was very wrong there. That team was not enjoying itself, was not together. It's harder for me to get a feel because I'm not there, but I would say that most of the guys, they're still echoing the things Steven said. The ball movement, he's preached ball movement. It hasn't happened, but I think that's more a factor of the players on the court. Like you said, their three best players, Kemba Walker, Jayson Tatum, and Jaylen Brown, in whatever order, are scorers, and they're not great passers, and they don't have even like a Marc Gasol type big man where you can cut and he's going to find cutters. They don't have that. They don't have really an elite pick and pop big man like a lot of teams have to space the court. And so they're missing some of the pieces of a very good offense, I think. And when you look at Stevens, I think the one thing that kind of pops out about his teams that they have consistently been missing, and I'm not sure it's all his fault. I'm pretty sure it's not all his fault, but they rarely get points in the paint. They rarely draw free throws. And that's been a pattern dating back to his first season. I think some of that is on the personnel. You look, Kyrie Irving was never a guy that sought out contact. Al Horford wasn't. So some of their best players haven't been that. But I think it's gotten to the point where it's concerning and possibly a factor of his offensive system that they don't put enough pressure on the rim and that they don't put guys in position to draw free throws and get to the free throw line and get some of those easiest points. And that, I think, that would be where I would start with a criticism of Brad Stevens if I were looking at this Celtics team.
You know, I think part of the problem, again, is you've got a system that's so reliant on shooting the three, and you don't have great three-point shooters. You don't have enough of them. Like, you've got streaky, some guys who can make threes, like Jaylen at times can make that corner three consistently, but he's not a great shooter. You know, like Kemba's not a great shooter. We know that. He's been streaky his whole life. Last 3 games, he's been pretty good from three. Before that, no, he was obviously he's coming back from the injury. So I think part of the problem for me is Brad Stevens, honestly, unwillingness a little bit to adapt and say, my personnel doesn't fit necessarily the style that I want to play and have played. So I've got to change a little bit, and we're not going to jack as many threes.
But here's the thing: if you don't jack threes, what do you do? Because they don't have a great like post up for. They don't have a Joel Embiid to be a half court offense where they're going to throw it into. Like, you don't want to do that with Tristan Thompson. You don't want to do that with Daniel Tice. You don't want to do it with Robert Williams.
You got to try to get up and down now that you've Kemba. You got to try to get up and down.
Yeah, and the pace, that's another thing that you look at the stats, and their pace is very slow. And their three best players, again, Kemba, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're all guys that should be out in transition, should be out making plays.
Yep.
And I think it'll make things easier when they do. But then again, like, they're playing too big a lot of the time because they don't have any backup wings. And we've seen this. He started last night Javonte Green and Shemi Ojeleye.
I know.
And
amazing.
And he's started Carson Edwards. He has started a bunch of guys. He started Jeff Teague. He starts guys.
It goes back to what you started with, Jay. It goes back ultimately your first comments where there's not enough talent around the top 3 guys. And number 3 right now isn't really what he normally is. So I agree. I think you have to wait. judge him when Kevin gets healthy. Probably after the All-Star break is when it's fair to judge this team. But is some of this on Danny Ainge? Obviously, because he's put this team together, Bob. And right now they don't look like they fit. And they certainly don't look like they fit with the way that Brad Stevens wants to play.
And he did own up, basically, I mean, if you take it at face value, I'm just saying he opened up and he was asked the questions by and the Herald headline was blame me. And so he's saying it, okay, but it's all adds up to every individual fan's patience quotient, a realistic measure, whatever, and it's too much is always hanging out there with the Boston Celtics about championship driven and all that. And I shudder when I hear that nonsense because there's so many variables that go into winning, as we all know. I love pointing out certain teams have been in this league 50 years, have never won. For example, the Atlanta Hawks, St. Louis won in 58 and the Hawks haven't won since. That's a long time, folks. And they've had some pretty good teams along the way at times. Not this one, but they've had some, and we can find other examples of teams that have never won. It's 50. We're in the 51st year of the incarnation of the Buffalo Braves, San Diego Clippers, Los Angeles Clippers. They're looking for number one, and this is their 52nd year of existence. It isn't easy to win, folks.
It's not.
And the Celtics have been historically very lucky about certain opportune things that happen. The opportunity to get Bill Russell, the opportunity to get Dave Cowens, when they fit one win difference between them and the Cincinnati Royals, and they might not have gotten Dave Cowens, okay? And of course, Bird, turning out to be even better than anyone ever dreamed, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. Anyway, so I'm saying is I'm patient. I'm not greedy. I'm just like with the Red Sox. I don't want to hear all this nonsense about the Red Sox. 4 championships since 2004. I'm a happy camper, okay? I don't expect to win every year. But people's expectations sometimes get, to me, just too grandiose.
Yep.
I'm not ready to. I'm disappointed. I don't. I hate it. I watched that game last night. It wasn't enjoyable. You know what I mean? As a basketball fan, it wasn't. Well, what was enjoyable was watching Trae Young. That was enjoyable.
He is fun to watch.
I mean, boy, I've been on his case since I saw him in Oklahoma the first time. I remember he had one 37-point game one day that was phenomenal, something. And I've been a fan of his, but that's enjoyable. Nice to have a player like that. Well, we've had our share over the years. That's all I'm saying. And one more thing, Jay, talk about the not getting to the free throw line, which has definitely been the truth the whole time. We hear about this every year. But when Tatum was a rookie, wasn't the most overtly wonderful thing about him was the way he got to the basket with that incredible first step, I thought. And I just still think that ought to be the number one thing in his game.
Yeah, and I think it's been harder for him since then because, I mean, if you look at that team, everyone was loading up on Kyrie Irving. Everyone was loading up on Al Horford, and he was the third option.
Yeah,
and it's gotten progressively tougher on him. And now instead of, attacking closeouts and being single covered all the time, he's got a full defense looking at him. And I think that's another piece where the lack of shooting hurts. The Celtics, I think they're near they're in the bottom 10 of the league in 3-point attempts, even though Tatum and Brown have shot fantastically from behind the arc. And it just shows you there's not enough spacing on the court. And so I think if they could get another 2 shooters, that would really help those guys. And I think
why they drafted Nesmith, and it still might happen. I mean, it's with him, of course. I mean, my God, we're talking 2 months in his career, 3 months in his career. Not saying, but it's what that's right. They did something that they seldom do, and which is drafted for a need.
Right.
That was a need. Turns out that the benefit they're getting from the draft is the other guy, which has been a very pleasant bonus, as you said. And I just think he's going to continue to get better and better. I just don't see why he won't, as he has a feel for the league as time goes on. And Pritchard won't be I think he's going to be a solid player for a long time. I really.
Yeah, I like Pritchard a lot. I mean, like I said earlier, and like you said, their bench would be really lost without him. He's been that important, and I think that's kind of shows you how little they've gotten from some of their other pieces, especially Teague. But yeah, Neesmith, I think his energy has been fantastic. He's out there and he gives the energy that sometimes it seems like the team is missing right now. He's diving on the floor, he's hustling everywhere. Yeah. Doesn't really know what's going on yet. The game still needs to slow down for him. He still needs to find that shot, and I think he will find that shot. You talk to guys from when he was in high school, from when he was in college, and they just talk about how ridiculous a shooter he is. So I think that'll come along. I think the defense that he's shown, the energy he's shown is actually pretty promising.
I mean, here's a quote. Can I read you a quote from a player that played the Celtics recently? I'm going to read you a couple quotes. I'm not going to say who it was, obviously, but I was asking him last night a little bit of his thoughts of the Celtics. And he said, Tatum and Brown can't be your superstars and only do things that help their game. They don't get anyone else easy shots. All they know how to do is score. Doesn't help the Kemba. Kemba doesn't help their center. They don't help anyone either. They don't turn down tough shots to get another guy an easy shot. So teams are onto them. That's basically what he said. Teams are onto them, load up on those two and live with them taking long twos. And that's what you're seeing. Like, again, like you said, Jay, what are they doing? Tatum gets by one guy. He's got two more waiting for him. Same thing.
That was
with
a good
Jaylen.
scouting report. Whoever you were talking to, that was a smart scouting report.
Well, it's not that hard to figure, right? It's not that hard to figure, but to hear it from a player that played against them, that knows them, that obviously they had a scouting report going into that game, it's pretty easy.